This is Kyle.
This is Cody.
And we're real friends. And this is our track by track for our EP, Torn in Two. We actually had quite a time trying to figure out a title. We couldn't land on anything. And that was just a lyric that was in Nervous Wreck, and it just seemed fitting for even just kind of life in general at the time. I think, not only the pandemic, but, there's just so many things in life that I feel like all of us were going through that we kind of did literally feel torn in two. And I think it was fitting. And and I feel like we do have traditionally always pulled from lyrics for the song title. So it just felt really natural. And it also, I think, brought a cool element to the artwork, because the cover, obviously, it kind of shows that a person sort of torn in two, and even inside the art and even some of the things that we've done when it comes to the visuals for the songs and things, we've kind of taken that torn in two thing in a more literal sense. I'm super stoked on it.
Yeah, as soon as we landed on that title, everything kind of was I think we already had the album art at that point, and the reimagined versions and stuff like that, having it in a way that's kind of torn into having A and really B cool sides. So it's when we landed on that title, we're oh yeah, that's it. That's the one that makes sense. It flows with everything else that we've put together here.
The 5 songs, I guess there was a couple of them that were actually recorded a lot earlier than the others. Teeth was recorded, when was that recorded? It was
that was in January.
Yeah, it was January of was that
this year?
Yeah. So, and then we we didn't really record the songs traditionally. They were kind of just scattered around. We wrote some of them with Andrew Wade in Florida, and then we recorded some of them with Mike Green in California, and then we recorded drums in Indiana. So it was really kind of just scattered around. Everything was very non-traditional for us. That was a specific one that we actually did. We wrote all of that in California when we were with Mike Green. And with that actually all came together in the studio. And that
it was probably one of the quickest ones to come together.
Yeah, it really did. It was just kind of an idea that Dave had. I remember him playing it in the lounge. It was just I kind of got this idea, and it was a riff, and it came together within hours.
Yeah. I think we wrote and recorded it within 3 days in the studio in California.
Yeah. That and I really like that one. I think we picked that one to be the opener just because it has so much intensity to it too. Just right off the bat, I feel it just really engages you. And I think it also has a lot of familiar elements that a lot of Real Friend songs have, past and present, of just heartfelt lyrics and just that intensity and emotion.
So the instrumental for Nervous Wreck was actually one of the first ones that I got sent to kind of be hey, here's a taste of our new material.
You had different vocals over it at one point too, didn't you?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So the band actually sent that to me back in March of 2020. And I kind of did my own little thing with it for a little bit, and that's kind of the first song that we played around with writing together. And then it was months and months later, because we kind of played around with it a bunch, and it never really came together until we got into the studio with Andrew Wade. And we kind of just sat down and we were we really want this to be a song. What can we do to make it work? And then I think it was when we decided to make the chorus double time. That's when we were oh, this sounds cool. And it kind of just all came together after that. And that was all in January of this year.
Yeah, we actually felt at first, I remember we actually couldn't get the chorus to sound right. It kept sounding like hard rock. I remember that, and Teeth.
Yeah.
And we just could not get it to work right. And then like Cody said, when we made it double time and everything, it started to kind of fall into place more. But I do remember when we when we finally got it where we wanted it to be, I remember thinking, I'm like, I definitely want this to be, if not the first song, one of the first songs that the fans hear Cody for the first time, and kind of the new chapter of the band. And it ended up being one of the first songs we released. So yeah, I'm really stoked on that song.
With Teeth, it was kind of like, that was one of the ones that we first wrote together with Andrew. And yeah, I like the first day in the studio with him, I went in there and kind of just was like, all right, like what's some of the stuff that like you want to write about? And I was like, well, I've been through a lot of crazy things over the past couple of years, and I kind of just like laid them all out. And then we were like, okay, like how can we turn this into a song now? And that's kind of where Teeth came from. Is we first started writing it as a full band, and like Kyle was saying, it just sounded like a hard rock song, and we were like, this doesn't sound right at all. But the lyrics were kind of getting there, and like the vibe of the song was getting there, and Andrew was like, no, like we have, like, I'm being stubborn about this, and so we were all like, what can we do to like convey this properly? And we're like, well, you know, it's like a very personal song, like what if you kind of made it more of like just like a intimate thing and made it acoustic? And that's when we did that, and right away we're like, oh, that's it, that's what we need to be doing. And with that, it all kind of just fell into place. And yeah, and that's one of my favorite songs on the EP, and I'm really happy that it all came together. And it's really cool to be able to share my story, and have seen people kind of reach out now and be able to relate with that and stuff like that.
That was one that we actually, a lot of that was written remotely. We actually wrote that with John, the vocalist from the Maine. And a lot of those ideas came together just sending things back and forth to each other. He actually like even sent over, it was kind of funny. It was kind of like sent over a couple vocal ideas that were kind of just like gibberish. Like it was just kind of like, cause I sent him like, I think it was just like a little chunk of lyrics, and Spinning Out of Control was like in there, and he just kind of sang that over and over, and then kind of just like mumbling some other things over other parts. But we wrote that remotely, and we were actually in the studio at the time in California, so we were able to finish it instrumentally with John, like remotely, and then we recorded it when we were in the studio in California, and then and that was actually just the instrumental that we recorded. And then when we went home, Cody recorded the vocals with a friend of ours. So yeah, that one was like so many bits and pieces of it were done like in different places.
Well, with Storyteller, that song was another one of the ones that like the instrumental Dave sent to us, and I was in Mexico at the time, and I remember getting it, hearing it, being like, oh, this is great, like really different than like a lot of the other stuff that we were kind of working out, and having that like slow start to it and everything. And we're just like, oh, this will be like a great thing to work on. And but once we got in the studio with Andrew, is like, yeah, like when that one really came together. And yeah, I'm really happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah, that was definitely one when we wrote even the demo version of it, like before we actually brought it into the studio. I remember saying that I feel like this is a really special song, because I really like that there's so many elements to it. Like at first you kind of think that it's going to be just a ballad, like slow jam, and then the chorus just like hits you. Like you don't expect it. And I just have always really gravitated towards our songs that have so many elements in them like that kind of take you for a ride. And yeah, just really stoked on that one, how that one came out. And it was a similar thing like Nervous Wreck. When we actually finished it in the studio, I'm like, I want like Real Friends fans to hear this song first. Like if our fans can hear this song, like I know they're gonna love it. And Nervous Wreck and Storyteller so happened to be the first two songs that we released when we announced Cody and the new chapter of the band.
originally, like we kind of were sitting there with like, okay, we have all these songs, and you know, which ones do we want to pick and whatnot. And so we were kind of sorting through all of them, and we're like, well, these 5 songs are our favorite. And then we were like, well, what else can we do with them? And we're like, well, what if we did like an acoustic thing as well to like release afterwards? And then we're like, well, what if we just like make totally reimagined versions and include that with the EP that we released? And so that's kind of how that happened. And like right away, we're like, oh, that seems like a really fun thing to do. Like have it on a vinyl and have it A side be the originals and B side be the reimagined versions. And yeah, it really sucked that it all came out like exactly how we were kind of imagining it when we were discussing it.